Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 11th episode of Halls of Horror. I am your host, True Crime Stories. And today, we're going to do something a little bit fun. I had one of my friends send me a message probably a couple of weeks ago and said I should go over what I think the perfect serial killer will look like. As you know, I've gone over quite a few of them. Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. The most recent one I did was, I think it was Gacy. And before that was Gein. So I've gone over quite a few of them, and I plan to go over a lot more. You've also noticed a lot of my videos are based on usually serial killers. But using my extensive knowledge and my basic white girl penchant to enjoy true crime, yes, that's a stereotype, and I'm totally okay with it. I'm gonna go ahead and make a Frankenstein of a serial killer, I guess you could say. And that I'm gonna have a good time with. And after I'm done going through my little stuff, I'm probably gonna pull people into the Discord to pitch in on their own as well. The Discord link is in the description. Welcome Remy, welcome Turtle. It's good to see you, Tetra. We had Anime Horror Doll subscribe earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and play what that looks like, or what the little alert is for that, because I fucking love me some Vincent Price. That man is a genius. Anyway, back to the task at hand. I'm going to go ahead and start with what the serial killer would look like. And I'm going to put out a few options on that, just because there are some aspects that work in certain areas and some that don't. I believe a serial killer that could blend in the most would be somebody that's either very good looking or very average, to the point they just blend into society and be the most nondescript person you could think of and would never pick as a serial killer. Example of somebody being attractive. Ted Bundy was objectively seen as being attractive. And because of that, he got away with a lot of some of the stuff he did. He also was able to use that to bring women into his vehicles or get his victims alone so that he could obviously get his rocks off and kill them, which is something several serial killers do. I think the Night Stalker has been objectively seen as attractive by a lot of fangirls. Yeah. There are also some serial killers that get away with it a lot longer because they seem more well-adjusted than they actually are. An example is John Wayne Gacy. He was a family man. He had a wife and kids, several wives actually, several kids. Seemed to be a loving father, was involved with the political groups, so he was well-liked there. And he was also I think it was KFC chain manager, and his employees liked him for the most part. And usually there are other people like BTK that did this, was very similar. And when you have the wife and child, it's very much hitting on the human aspect that we have biologically. You don't want to think that somebody that has a wife and kids would hurt anybody. And usually, unfortunately, it's usually kids, like in Gacy's case, where he likes teenage boys, or young men. And it makes it so you won't suspect them, usually. You don't want to think, as a person, you don't want to think that somebody that's either a family man, a woman, or attractive, or seems not very he doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary, you don't necessarily think of immediately as somebody that would commit these kind of murders. You want to think that it's some ghastly, monstrous-looking person that would be this Jekyll and Hyde nasty thing you could just pick out anywhere, but unfortunately that's not the case most of the time. Another big thing that I think would be huge with serial killers is what their mannerisms or characteristics are. A lot of them are that are able to get away with a lot are usually very charismatic or can very easily spin a tale that somebody would believe normally. I've got a couple examples. One is Charles Manson. Ugly as sin, but for some reason he was able to use his charisma and his ability to talk to make not only a cult, but get cult members to kill. He obviously got people on his end from his cult to murder Sharon Tate and her child. He got the cult to believe that there was going to be some sort of race war to... So in that way, he was able to get people to believe him and do things for him. Another good example is Edmund Kemper. Now, Kemper is interesting because he was admitted to a psychiatric institution in his early teens, and diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. But even though as a paranoid schizophrenic, you would think that they can't hold all of that in, they can't mask it, but he was actually able to convince the doctors that he was well enough to be released. He kept the thoughts of doing merciless things to people, the fantasies that he gained from other psychos that are admitted to the same asylum, and to think that this person could just convince you to think they're well-adjusted when they're actually not. And even in, if you were to go look at Manhunters, for example, or you watch anything that has to do with him footage-wise, he just hit it, Tetra. He hit it very well. From any therapist or doctor that he talked to, he was able to somehow mask that, and they never caught on. But you could see how that could happen if you watch something like Mindhunters or any footage with him where he's very mild-mannered. He seems very friendly. You would have no idea this guy was as psychopathic as he was, or that he was even sick. And that's a scary thing. But it also is a way for them to get away with a lot of the things that they do, because you wouldn't suspect him. You would believe what they're telling you. Hey, Queen Anne's Revival, how you doing? Another factor that is usually a good thing is intelligence. There are some serial killers that are extremely intelligent. Like there's Gary Heidnik, who had an 130-point IQ. And there are doctors that are like, there were serial killers that are, and usually you'd think a doctor's extremely bright, very smart. And it allows them to think, either give them authority or have more of the mental awareness to do certain things, and plan things out. What else is really, really important is, Turtle, what did you do? What did you do? Holy shit. Thank you, Turtle, for the $25. I really appreciate that. You didn't have to, but I will gladly accept. And watching you in a ghost hunt for the ultimate creepy night. Perfect combo, man. That's a good shit. Turtle's fantastic. I love Turtle. Sweet girl. Go watch her streams if you haven't. It's absolute fun, I guess you could say. But you don't just want them to have intelligence. They need to have some sort of lack of empathy, and oddly enough, that's something that people with a high IQ generally have. They have like there's a disconnect between the human aspect of a person and the psychological, mental aspect of a person when you're high IQ, and it's postulated, or it's a lot of people who study this stuff think, or I guess you could say professionals that look at this stuff would say that having that high IQ gives you that disconnect between having that sort of, yeah, it's trivial for them. They don't care. They don't actually make connections with people, so therefore they don't understand or they don't care about how other people are, could feel. They could think about it, but they don't actually feel it. It doesn't line up emotionally. They really care less. They're disconnected. Welcome back, Willow. We are, I'm making a Frankenstein of a serial killer, using all of my vast knowledge of this kind of delusional bad stuff. No, I would never be a serial killer. I am not of the type. However, I find this shit fascinating. Extremely fascinating. They also tend to have generally a sense of sadism, or they're very sadistic towards other people. They don't just not care, but they enjoy people being hurt or having some sort of emotional or physical pain. They either like inflicting it or seeing it be inflicted. One of those cases is Albert Fish. I've gone over him quite a bit. And in his case, he's also a masochist, so he's a bit of both. Or you call him a sadomasochist. Where he enjoyed seeing people being spanked with a wooden paddle with nails. And he liked watching his victims die and be scared of what is coming. And as a masochist, he would put needles in his genitals, and when he was x-rayed later on, which I even show the picture of it, there's multitudes of needles in him when they did that x-ray. Hi Courtney, welcome. Good thing everybody's just coming in early, so they're not missing a whole lot of stuff. So far, they need to be either good looking or average to where they blend in. They need to have some sort of well-adjusted life that to the outside world makes people not necessarily associate you with being a monster. They should be very charismatic or be able to spin a good yarn to get people to do what they want or get themselves out of trouble. They're usually intelligent and they lack a sense of empathy. And then they're sadistic. Another good example of a sadistic killer is Robert Berdella. He's kind of interesting because he not only enjoyed inflicting pain and torturing his victims, but he would tranquilize them. So they're not only experiencing this and usually awake, they're unable to fight back. He would torture them, he would rape them, he would take pictures of what's going on, take film of what's going on. He called them his play toys in court. Albert is really scary. If you really want to get spooked and you want to get grossed out, I highly suggest looking at the 2 parts that I did on him. Those are the first two things I did, and they were just disgusting. So, yeah, that goes over a lot more than most people would have thought of when they thought of Albert Fish. But with that, you've got people that don't care and love that they don't care. Another thing that's really interesting that I think, yes, he's kind of like the toy box killer. I gotta go over that person at some point. He's fucking insane. And I'm really glad that you brought that one up earlier. I think Nugget was the one that brought it up earlier, but that's gonna stay in my head now that you've said it again, Tetra. It's also pretty much, for me, I would think that a serial killer, or the perfect serial killer, would be one of three things. And the first is a police officer. Now, the reason why I would say this is because there are several killers that have used the guise of being a police officer to pull people over and detain them without them thinking that it's, at least necessarily at first, that it's out of the ordinary. And they're less likely to fight back. You're more likely to be able to get them restrained before you can get them out of wherever they're at to do what you want to do. And if they're actually a police officer, they would, number one, they'd probably understand the law and know how to get around it in certain ways. They would know what areas are being patrolled so they could avoid those areas. They would have a reputation, usually maybe not now, but they'd have a reputation of being a protector to the public. They're less likely to want to cause that kind of harm to the extent that somebody dies or take pleasure in that. Unfortunately, that's not totally the case with the climate that we're going with right now. But there's another example that people might not know of, and that's Gerard Schaefer. This guy was kind of a psychopath. Yeah, the transcripts are really fucking horrifying. And I'm definitely going to do probably a Tales of Terror on that, because while I've seen that people know who that is, I've barely seen any kind of material on him. Like, I believe I was watching Investigation Discovery when I saw maybe one episode of a TV show on him, or a documentary on him, and I have to do that again. I have to go over that in more detail and make sure that, people where more people are able to understand and be fascinated by that particular sycophant. But as I was saying, Gerard Schaefer, he, as far as I'm aware, had only 2 victims. And both of those victims he picked up while he was a police officer using the guise of a lawful arrest. So he basically pulled them over. There were 2 hitchhikers. He pulled them over, pretend arrested them, and then obviously killed them. Hey, Mystic, what's up, girl? Welcome to the show. It's good to see you. Hi, chick. It's good to see you, too. The other position that I would say would be very convenient and easy to run with as a serial killer is a doctor. Some of the worst killers that I'm aware of are doctors, and it's insane. And the reason why I'll say this is that doctors have a very keen medical knowledge of the human body, so they would know so many ways of how to kill a person, how to dispose of a person, what kind of drugs will do what to a person's body. And that's also pretty scary when they are in, say, an emergency ward. They would be able to pick whatever victims they want to pick. Like, say they're in an emergency room or they're in a normal hospital. They could just go for anybody that seems to be, I don't know, kind of sick. And all they'd have to do is go inject them with some sort of chemical or drug on a round and just kind of brush it off as, it was just a cove blue that happened out of nowhere. They weren't going to make it, yada, yada, yada. And generally, from what I've seen with these kind of killers, they're believed at first until the pattern starts adding up. But if they're smart, that won't happen. And they're usually trusted with their knowledge to that what they're saying is legitimate. That's another one I'll get to a little bit later, Tetra. I'll talk about victims and what that would look like for the perfect killer as well later. One example of this that is pretty well known is Harold Shipman. And he was a personal doctor for somewhere around 40 to 50 years. And by the time he was arrested and his crime spree end, it's suspected that he's connected to somewhere between 297 to 345 murders as a possibility. And all of these people were his patients. What he would like to do is he would pick elderly women or people who have some sort of medical handicap that would make it easy to say, hey, this person just died out of nowhere. I don't know what happened. Or it was because of this. Like I think he would inject them with a chemical, if I'm not mistaken, elderly women. He'd go to their houses as if it was like a routine visit, and then inject them with some sort of chemical. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what it was. He would either inject them or he would maybe suffocate them. I'll have to go look into it again, but I think so. And he not only would be able to do that and get away with it by explaining it away, and most people not really putting two and two together, but he would also somehow get their property by saying they're signing it over to him in a will. So he made a lot of money off of people that he killed, which is even more disgusting. But I digress. That's just one example of that. I already have gone over a killer of death as well on my channel. I like to go over a little bit of everything. But the third thing I would go with is any kind of job that you could travel constantly, or not having a concrete job at all, because you could just be anywhere in any given country. You could be any state at any time, and it's a very good way to try and keep law enforcement from connecting murders together, which has happened multiple times with multiple different murderers. Just like the highway killer was the last one I did a video on. And it's very hard when you get two different police departments from even two different departments or counties to work together to find somebody. So that's one of the easiest ways to get things done for a longer period of time in multiple instances. Yeah, like a trucker. Yeah, I think there are some serial killers that were truckers, but I don't know any off the top of my head right now. There's just way too many serial killers that I know of that I just can't. Woo! It's like a Rolodex of murder in my head. Of murderers. Ugh. It's pretty gross, but I digress. now that we kind of see what they would look like on a normal level, how they would look, how they would act, how they would, where they possibly work, we can look at what they would do necessarily as a killer. Now, with my research and my knowledge, I believe that the perfect killer would have to work alone. And that's really because when it's couples or duos, they're more likely to flip on each other. And that's somebody that knows the intricacies of what's going on that can just turn on you. And that'll fuck you over real fast. Whereas when you're alone, there isn't that verifiable source that was there that could get some sort of leniency by flipping on you. So it's kind of like the Homolkas. Who else? There are a lot of different serial killer couples that are, or even just duos, partners in crime that are flipped on each other. They would have a certain kind of hunting grounds that they would use, and they call it hunting grounds. I would usually say that you would do it in a dense population or a city that's very dense, because whereas, yeah, there's a lot of people, but if you were in a small town, those people would know each other. So if anything happens, somebody would know about it and word would spread fast. Whereas in a denser city, that's not going to happen. There's way too many people for that to be, and usually there's more going on and nobody will pay attention to that. I would say they're not a nomad, so they don't do any of that at home. They don't do any of the killings at home at all, because that's another way for it to easily be traced back to you. And that's not, it's not very smart. I would say that this person would not stick to one place, and they would move city to city, state to state, country to country. They wouldn't be in the same place when they do their killing, or they commit another murder and go about their killing spree. Because, like I said earlier, they're less likely to connect things together. Because it's just too much paperwork and bureaucracy within departments. They want to get all the clout from getting a guy or a killer off the streets. So that there comes that. And I would think that this person would stick to improvised areas when they do their or they commit the murder, because that way it's out of nowhere, or impoverished. Sorry. Somewhere where it's more poor. And because it's poor, there's a lot of people that you would not notice disappear. I'm glad you think so, Turtle. I'm trying. With that comes the victims. Now, the easiest victims to get that you can get away with easily, and a lot of serial killers do take upon or make their victims, are transient sex workers, anybody who's not going to be missed. Because generally with transients and sex workers or people that are on the street, they're not communicating with their family more times than not. They're drug addicts, so if they just disappear, they could have OD'd. Nobody cares really about that sort of thing. And it makes the police less likely to go after that. Because if you have a loved one and you go missing, they're going to report it. And then that's going to kickstart an investigation that could and eventually lead up to you. Hi, Sheep. Welcome. With the victims, I would say that the perfect killer doesn't stick to a particular kind of person. They don't pick a certain age, they don't pick a certain race, they don't pick a certain sex. Because that makes it a lot easier to connect with the MO and some sort of pattern of what this person likes. Oh, hey, Nugget! Welcome. You missed us all all being grossed out on the toy box killer, which you brought up, and then Tetra brought up on her own, which made me giggle. Uh-oh. Who did what? Turtle, why did you do that again? Oh, God. Thank you, Thatch, for the $30. Happy birthday, October babies. I very much appreciate it. And thank you again, Turtle, for another $20, saying, I'm still laughing that you describe my streams as fun, lol. Well, they are. They're a little bit stressful, but yeah, I enjoy them. And I enjoy being a part of them. So, there's that. And back to, yeah, bad man. More than a bad man, and I have to go over that. Yeah, chick, I'm kind of blushing about that because I really don't do these things to make any money. I do this because it's fun, and I enjoy talking about this stuff with people. But I digress. I'm getting embarrassed. And with victims, they're aware of targets of opportunity. So they like transients or sex workers or people that are on the street or streetwalkers. And they don't pick a certain kind of person. And they're also aware of when it's a good time to snag somebody and get their rocks off. Oh, hi, Bam Dailies. Welcome. Now, along with that, there's also the aspect of how they're going to snare their victims. And I kind of covered that a little bit. And there's different kind of... Oh, thank you for liking the background. Yes, Scorpio life. Yee, Scorpios. Like, with the position of a cop and a doctor, cop, it's easy to pull somebody over and kind of pretend you're doing a lawful arrest. And doctors have the opportunity to get rid of patients that seem like they could just die out of nowhere. Yeah, they're the ultimate imposters in real life. It's really fucking scary. A lot of killers, unfortunately, are pedophilic, and they like children, whether it be boys or girls, and I hate that. It's gross. Blech. Hate those kind of people. But with those, they'll get them with candy, money, toys, anything of that sort that would be like an instant gratification for a child. Because we obviously know that kids really enjoy being able to get a hold of stuff really easy. They get really excited when, like, you say candy. Ah, shit, thanks for the, what's up, Bam Dailies. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the family. Yeah, they're renting everywhere. Send the Among Us players after them. Yeah, they're kind of like the ultimate imposters for that. But that's the problem with kids, is that it's so easy to get them away from people with the smallest things. The other easy one that's really get to is prostitutes or transients. You could just go up to a transient out of nowhere. Wade is on Twitch. What? What about Twitch? X'd out? I'm confused, Nugget. You're gonna have to explain to me where that was with. But with prostitutes, it's just really easy. Say you're moving around a lot. You'll go to the red light districts. You just kind of cruise around that area. You'll find one particular woman of the night and say, hey, I want to... How much for this and that? I am, but I don't do these kind of streams on there. I do my... I will do my gaming streams on there, but this is a little bit more touchy for it to be on Twitch. I'd have to delete every VOD. Whereas here, I can just... It's not for children. I make sure it's not marked for them, so that's kind of saving my butt and being able to keep the VODs up. Also means it's going to be very difficult for me to get monetized when I get to that point, but doesn't matter. Don't really care. I just like doing this. Um, but a lot of serial killers also pick up prostitutes and just drive them off to freaking BFE is bumfuck Egypt. I say that a lot. So if you ever hear me say BFE, that's what I mean. Bumfuck Egypt. And it's so easy to just give that person money and say, oh, let's go over to this sort of place to get away so that the cops don't see us doing this stuff. And on the flip side, there's also some prostitutes that are able to pick their victims out that are Johns, like Eileen Wuornos. Obviously, it would get these guys out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, trick them into thinking that she's gonna give them the goods, and then kill them and steal their shit. So it can work either way, but I would think that it's a John more than the killer would be the John more than the lady or man of the night. There are cross-dressers. Nothing wrong with that. But yes, I do play Phasmophobia. I actually have a stream up, a VOD for Phasmophobia. I played with my husband and some friends. So I do that. Her life was definitely heartbreaking. A lot of these, it makes you almost feel bad in a sense. Aw, shit. We got Turtle for another 5 saying, you're right, it is easy to give money. God, yeah. Now you're making me feel like I'm your lady of the night, and I'm not necessarily sure I like that. I like Turtle. I'm okay with that. So, with all of that in mind, I was saying that most killers have a very tragic background. They're either very much abused as kids. It's very rare that children, that serial killers grow up having a good life. The only exception I know of off the top of my head, I do love you, Turtle, I do. And not because you give me money, because you're cute. You're very fun to be hanging out with, and I have a good time. You're good peoples. The only one that I could think of is, what's her name? The Homolka. The wife. She grew up fine, and then her dude turned her around and corrupted her, I guess you could say. But that's a very rare case, and that usually takes some sort of trigger by somebody else in order for it to go that way. I think there's another person, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to do a video on them. I have to go look into it before. I saw an episode of something on ID and was really freaking interested, but the guy basically was, yeah, it is too wholesome, but I try to be nice. Carla Homolka, yes, Mr. Habs, that is exactly who I mean. Carla Homolka is the person I'm talking about. Yeah, she was pretty wholesome when she grew up, but it took her husband or boyfriend at the time to kind of turn her, and that turning point was pretty gross on it itself. Go over that later. Ooh. But they usually will grow up being abused or have some sort of poverty, abusive parents, that sort of thing beforehand. And it's pretty disgusting. It makes you kind of feel bad, but because of what they did or what they do later in life, you kind of lose that sympathy. Now that we kind of know, yeah, I guess so. I guess she is buying a birthday gift, but that's in 2 weeks, so, like, don't... Yeah, Carl set up her sister. He, drugged the sister. I believe they raped her together, and she ended up suffocating because she was choking on her own vomit. And I think it was on camera, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was pretty gross. I digress. But again, that's another, I'll go back to what they should look like. They're both very good-looking people. They were married. They were in the, yes, her younger sister, Mr. Habs, which was really sad. But they were the people you wouldn't think would be killers, and yet they were. So that's where that comes from on my end, if I were to Frankenstein somebody up for that. Yes, ew, QAR, absolute ew. Yes, they look more than, not just normal, but they were popular. Like, I believe they were kind of celebrities of some sort. They were the Canadian Ken and Barbie, if I remember correctly, them being called. Just because they were such attractive couples. Or they were just an attractive couple in general. So we know what they look like, how they would be psychologically, how they would act in life, in public, what jobs they might have, and what they would do with their hunting grounds, what their victims would be, how they would get them. But then we go to an MO, or modus operandi, which is basically something that could be very patented, that would make it easy for you to get caught. With that, I would say, yeah, you gotta disavow. Look them up. It's pretty gross, Turtle. Take a sip of my Monster. I would, if I were a serial killer, I would change my MO up a lot. And that's because they can't, it's hard, unless they have like DNA evidence, which part of it you don't want to have that. And that's the next point I'll make. But unless they have that kind of evidence to connect everything, they're less likely to. So if you look normal, you act normal, people like you pick people that are completely different kinds of people, race, age, sex, and they're people that they don't care about, and you do it in different ways, it's very hard to connect anything. And it's very hard to put together that it's one person. And there are some serial killers that will escalate or change a little bit what they're doing and make it worse. And sometimes that makes it kind of iffy whether or not it's the same person that's killing these people. Oh, God. Thank you, Bam VFX, for subscribing. Vincent Price is also very happy you subscribed. Fantastic. No, I'm not that kind of person. Bye, chick. Thanks for stopping by. It's good seeing you. I'll talk to you later. But no, I'm not gonna go off and start doing that. I've made a joke about it before, but it was kind of one of those dumb jokes, like stupid people kind of jokes. And I guess I divert a little bit and give a story that I've had. I used to be a security guard, and I worked with this particular guy that was an elderly gentleman and was very gullible. And when there was downtime, I was playing, at the time, I think it was Pokemon Omega Sapphire. I think that's what it was called. I'm blanking a little bit, but it was a Pokemon game, and I'm sitting there playing on my DS, and I did that a lot. So he would look over me. He's like, "Well, you like video games a lot, huh?" Yeah, they're a lot of fun. He's like, "Well, why do you like them so much?" Because it makes me able to deal with the stupid people. Well, why do you have problems with stupid people? And I just kind of looked up very slowly. And it was like, he's like, well, what would you do with stupid people? Well, I'd probably be a serial killer. And he's like, what? And I just looked up and I'm like, he's like, really? And I looked up and I'm like, you're alive, aren't you? And I swear the look on his face when I said that was priceless. His entire demeanor just changed. His jaw dropped, his eyebrows shot up to his hairline, and he was completely pale Funniest thing joke I've ever made, I think. In regards to somebody being like, oh, do video games help you deal with stupid people? Yeah, you're still alive, aren't you? Dude, that was good. Anyway, that was just a joke. It was just a joke. I'm not that kind of person. I won't do anything. I wouldn't actually do anything. But the guy kind of bugged me. He was really, really dumb, and he does some really dumb stuff. So, I kind of had to get him a little bit. Anyways, I'll do disclaimer, I am not a serial killer. Do not do any of the things that I am saying. This is merely speculation. Yeah. With this sort of thing, like I was saying, cover your tracks. Yeah. Huge lies cover their tracks. Hey! Fuck you, QAR. I'm not that kind of person. I'm a good person. I'm a good girl. Make fun of me. No. And like I was saying with the DNA evidence. No, I probably wouldn't be joking about it. Well, no. Yes and no, but I wouldn't be doing it this way. I would probably be doing it... Oh, most serial killers generally would be doing it through, like, a taunting letter to authorities, that sort of thing. Again, back on track. Since we were... Oh, God, 45 minutes. Y'all got keeping me going. Love it. True Crime Sus, voter out. Damn, Murder Paula, you fucking... is it Murder Paula or Murder Paya? I don't know, but whichever it is, it may be sus, but I'm not the killer. I was doing my tasks. Anyway, back on track. You would want to take that one part out of there, or that possibility of connecting you out of there by using some, like, gloves. I mean, if you're a female, hairnet, because hair, I mean, we shed a lot as human beings. I would probably clean under the nails of the victim so that, you know, if they scratch me, you know, my skin isn't underneath their nails. Those are a lot of things that people have gotten caught for. And I mean, you wouldn't want that either. You would want them to refrain from doing any one kind of ritual, because some of them do these kind of rituals where they'll, like with the toy box killer, where he tie him in his big old quote-unquote toy box and play a tape for him that freaks him out, gets him all scared before he does his crap. They wake up in like a torture chamber. I saw TCS doing her tasks. God damn it. It's everywhere. Among Us is everywhere. And then the last thing that I would do, that a perfect killer would do, is they would not, like I said, commit these things at their home. They wouldn't do it in an area where people could see them. You would think they would go somewhere deserted or there's less traversed, like woods, desert, something like that, where there's generally people aren't going to see you. It's like the Men in Black territory, where if anybody's out there, they're the fucking feds. Just saying. I've had experience with that. But yeah, those are the things that you would want to do, because number one, they're less likely to see you. Even if you leave no DNA, they can examine your shoes or boots, which is a good, yes it is. And you want to try to avoid that as well. Some people will put like medical booties on so that it doesn't. But you never know. I mean, on the topic serial killers, I read an article about Dexter possibly coming back. That's what I'm hearing. It's going to be a short series, I think. But I'm not totally sure. I remember hearing something about that this morning. Anyway, you want to do whatever you can to minimize your footprint, quote unquote, at the scene. And being out in an area where it's out of nowhere, like the middle of nowhere in BFE, they're less likely to find that stuff, and by the time they do, all that stuff is gone. with the MO, there's a method on how killers will kill. There's the guns, like the Washington snipers, or the DC sniper. There's strangulation. There's the axe murderer that uses axes. There's knives. A whole lot of stuff. I definitely wouldn't use a gun because ballistics research is very, very advanced nowadays, and it'd be really easy to trace the markings on a bullet, and if they found the gun, it's very easy to put them together, two and two together, and just put you in the middle of the scene. So I wouldn't do that. I would pick something that's easily disposable, or it's really hard for you to... most people would have, like, rope, or... I would say that the most preferable method is strangulation, with probably your hands. So there's no weapon to actually find. Or if you're a doctor, or a guy or gal who likes to make money off of dead spouses, you could do poison or meds that can't be traced after a certain amount of time, because there are some meds, I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but there are some medications that have a internal life of like 24 hours. Use the kill command method from Minecraft. Oh god. Yeah, that. So there's those things. Now, one of the big things that really gets people caught is taunts. There's only a few instances where that hasn't when it hasn't got them caught, which is, Jack the Ripper, Zodiac, but there are a lot of instances where writing these letters will get you caught. Albert Fish did it with the Buds. He sent a letter telling them everything, what he did to their daughter. The Son of Sam sent letters. BTK sent letters and got caught eventually after that. The Unabomber got caught eventually because of the stuff that he published. So I definitely wouldn't try to make myself... Although usually you have an ego, but ideally, if you were to be a serial killer, you wouldn't want people to get that much attention, because then it's going to put pressure on authorities to figure out what's going on. They are two really good ones. They are definitely classics, which is why I have both of them on the thumbnail. And another really big thing that will get serial killers is trophies. If you do get trophies, make sure that it's something benign that can't really be traced back to a certain person. But obviously the best example of that is Ed Gein. There are some killers that would collect women's shoes, and that's pretty creepy. And get caught using letters. Jack the Ripper used letters too. Remember, he sent part of somebody's, I think, liver to the police. Which is creepy. But when you have trophies and somebody can pick out, like with Gein, it was body parts that could be identified and traced back to certain people. There's some that collects women's shoes. If there's skin cells in that, they could pick that. Or their shoe size. Can be traced back to somebody. If you have certain, some people would take lockets or jewelry that can be traced back to the person, and that's definitely not good. Well, boy needed some good footwear. It's more likely that they have a fetish, and I don't understand feet fetishes, but whatever. But there are guys that have a serious foot fetish, or their closet cross-dressers, or closet drag queens, I guess you could say, and they would take these things because they want to be the woman, kind of like Buffalo Bill would have women's stuff kind of thing, except he stole skin, completely different. And the last thing I want to go over is the methods of disposal. Now, there are some pretty inventive ones that I've come up with where it's, obviously there's dissolving in acid, but you got to make sure you get rid of that. Which is something Dahmer did. He had lots of, they found vats of acid with body parts still melting in the vats of acid. So, if you're gonna do that, you'd have to make sure you get rid of it somehow. But I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do that. I'm not a chemist. I'm not any of that stuff. Yes, I do. Some of them are cannibals, like Albert Fish. Who else did that stuff? Jeffrey Dahmer ate people. Andre Chikatilo ate people. Yeah, there's a lot of cannibals, which is really, really gross and disgusting, but I digress. You could completely burn the body, meaning you'd have to make sure everything is gone. Because there are killers that have been caught with charred bones and fire pits that got traced back, and that's not an ideal situation. Lecter isn't I don't think Lecter's a real person. He's based off of Geen as well, I think. Geen Fish, I think he's based off of, but I could be wrong. But Hannibal Lecter isn't a real. He's a fictional character. But as an example, yes. What's up, Mike? Late to the party, but at least you showed up. And glad you did. I love having everybody here. The last one that I guess you kind of say is more normal, would be making sure you bury body in the deserted area of the crime you committed. So out in the middle of nowhere, like in the desert or in the woods, you want to make sure that it's, completely buried, not like a shallow grave. I mean, there are a lot of killers that the bodies of their victims would be found because they just throw them on the side of the road, or they shallowly bury them, and they're easy to find eventually when animals get to it, or the landscape is disturbed by natural means or unnatural means. So you want to make sure that that's actually buried, or that's what they would do. And having it out in the middle of nowhere, it's easily going to decompose. People are less likely to actually be in that area for any reason. And by the time somebody does show up, all of that stuff's gone. The other one that I thought of that I know somebody's done it, but I don't remember who off the top of my head. But say somebody's a farmer and they have pigs. Pigs eat anything. Doesn't matter what it is. They're basically walking garbage disposals. So say you killed somebody, you had a victim, cut them up, grind the meat, and then give it to the pigs. They'll eat all of it. They'll eat the bones, they'll eat the flesh, but problem is that they'll poop it out and eventually people will find it. But those are the ways that I can think of where you're less likely to be caught. And that's basically what I would say they would look like if there was a perfect serial killer. Those are the ways that I could think of that they would go about doing stuff. But then again, technology is the way it is. Most of them are extremely narcissistic, or they start thinking that... I think there was an episode of Bones, yeah. And I think there was also X-Files, maybe? But most will never be like this. There's never going to be somebody that's intelligent enough, self-aware enough. They always get comfortable. Hi, Kells. Yeah, you come in when I'm about to start letting people come in and call. Since I've done with my yakking for the last hour. But there's no way that there could be... I don't think anything like a Jack the Ripper or Zodiac could happen today. At least not in, first world countries where they have the technology to really put things together to catch somebody. So this is just speculatory. This is just based upon what I know and what I think would be the perfect serial killer. However, nothing is perfect. We do not live in a perfect world. Things will happen. They will usually get themselves caught for some reason or another. And now that my spiel is up, I have put the link to the Discord in the description. So if anybody wants to hop in and give their 2 cents or talk about something in particular regarding this subject, you are more than welcome to do so. The link that I have in the description is good for 24 hours. After that, it's going to expire. Gotta make sure that, we keep the crazies out. Oh, I guess we're all kind of crazy. We're talking about this stuff. Oh, we got BAM VFX coming in. Just hop into waiting, and if you want to... Murder Paula's in here. If you want to hop into waiting and get pulled in, more than happy to do so. I like these kind of streams where I can interact with the audience like that. Get their kind of feedback on it and be a bunch of white girls together. Huh. Even though not everybody's a white girl. The biggest here in Canada. Which one was that, Mr. Habs? Curious. I don't know a whole lot of Canadian serial killers. I know some, but I don't know every single one of them, or I'm not totally familiar with all of them. Oh, Lord. This was fun, though. I really wanted to do it on Tuesday, but there was just too much going on for me to... Aw, shit. It's my buddy. What's up, QAR? How you doing tonight? What's up, my dude? How you doing tonight? Doing fantastic. Let me change my voice settings so that you can just hear me automatically.
All right. You're all good.
There we go. You hear me all right?
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. So, what's your take on all of this? What caught your attention you want to talk about?
It was mostly their method, like what your perfect killer would be, and sort of around the end when you were actually talking about like hiding the bodies and whatnot. Because a little something just like went off in my brain where I was like, oh, hey, I know about they weren't necessarily considered serial killers, but here in North Carolina we had like some sort of family hick wars go on in the mountains, and so I actually talked about it in the comments, but basically they'd find areas where landslides were, and then they'd like dig it out and then make it look like their victims were like buried under the landslide.
Yeah, like it was a natural cause. Yeah, that's kind of smart for some hicks like that. Robert Pickton. I'll have to look into that, Mr. Haps, because I don't think I've heard of that guy before. Interesting. A reporter exposed him. Ooh, that's gotta love the media sometimes when they do actual decent shit. But yeah, that's a very inventive way of doing it, and if hicks, like, those kind of backwoods people could figure that out, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, and we still here, I don't know about, I bet you in California there's absolutely no like place that's absolutely like off the maps or off the grid or anything like that. But here in North Carolina, we still have parts of the mountain that are like so remote that people aren't even getting internet out there.
You'd be surprised, actually. I mean, California is a desert, so there's a lot of just open space still.
Yeah. Actually, I do know of a place. It's like it's maybe somewhere around Nevada and California, and it used to be a lake out in the middle of the desert that like dried up,
Mm-hmm.
and the old gas station there is still up for sale, but like it's miles away from like anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's super creepy. But I was gonna say something. I had something in my head. Um, but yeah, going out to those places where there's like absolutely no way for them to, you know, contact others
Ooh.
and like not like
Yeah, there's
emergency
no
services.
way. Yeah, you're not going to be able to get in touch with civilization.
Yeah, that would probably be pretty expensive on the killer's end,
Absolutely. But I
but
mean, most of them find it like emotionally or sexually gratifying in some way, so they don't fucking care about money.
yeah. So, and I think I said something too about when you were talking about the doctors, how the biggest problem with them wanting to like control it is that haven't some killers like been shown to be like addicted to like what they're doing to
Yeah,
their victims. Yeah,
exactly. There are a lot of them that will do it enough to where there's a pattern you can pick out that something's wrong.
yeah, and
So
then it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
and then it
that's
kind of becomes obvious.
ooh mega yikes, Mr. Habs. You worked with someone whose aunt was one of the victims for Picton Kales. Ooh, big
What?
yikes, big ol' yikes,
Holy crap!
right? Well, it's odd how it. There's a lot of people that could know people that are involved in these things. The Tales of Terror I'm doing is something that a friend of mine sent my way in a DM, and their family was involved in it. And this is something
Oh
that
yeah,
happened this month, so that's going to
really?
be interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to give away too much, but yeah, it's a very sad case, and it's going to be a lot like the Noah Quattro case, where I'm going to have a really hard time putting it all together and get it out, but it will be done. I'm one of those that will get the hard topics and actually talk about them, no matter how sick to my stomach they make me.
Because they are sick, but they're also kind of interesting at the same time.
Well, there are some that aren't necessarily interesting. Like with kids, I'm not very like, especially when the parents are the ones that kill the kids. I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah,
That's hard for me. And then, um,
I
when
could I actually didn't know about that it was a whole kids situation.
and unborn children even worse.
Oh,
Yeah. So it involves an expecting mother and her unborn child, and that makes me very upset on a lot of levels. So that's going to be hard, but it'll be done and it'll be out um, eventually, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's that. Was there anything else that you were interested in talking about now that you're on here, since nobody else has popped in?
Yeah, there was something. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of interesting to get, well, after seeing Habs mention it, well, and or after seeing the chat mention it, um, it's kind of interesting to hear about other people's perspectives on primary things
Yeah,
because, like, usually you see the primary victims, either someone talking about them or something like that,
yeah,
or hear the victims themselves. But then it's kind of interesting not to get too far into the paranormal, but like, uh, the demon house, um, where they had the uh, social worker come in to check on the children to make sure the mother wasn't abusing them, and to hear about her experience with it. Just
I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look into that actually.
you should. Ghost Adventures actually did a whole uh,
What was?
their own independent episode on it.
Oh, really? Holy shit! Send me that link if you could find it.
Yeah, I'll try and find it. It scarred me a little bit,
I'll bet it did,
but
man. That I wouldn't.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that kind of stuff is fucking scary.
yeah, I don't mind. Usually helps for some reason in some way. I don't know. You're listening to the guy that listened to a dementia simulator that took 6 hours to finish. So,
Yeah. Oh, somebody asked earlier if I watched the last podcast on the left. Yes, I do.
ooh,
It's a good show.
I,
Good
I
podcast.
haven't done.
You look it up. It's really good. I think they have a Spotify. They used to have a YouTube channel that had like all of the archive stuff, but it disappeared. So I'll have to go find those again. Are you talking about the one that Zach Baggins bought?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, sheep. That's the one he's talking about.
Yeah, that one. The footage of it is absolutely wild.
Oh, I'll bet.
And there's a few places like that. Like here in North Carolina, we have like um, oh, there's one house, I forget the name of it, but it was a serial killer's house. Well, like a minor serial killer, like, but he like I think only killed two people, and then
Technically
got
not a
caught.
serial killer, but
Yeah, he was aspiring serial killer. He because he got there was just this thing that he wanted to do to people, and he did it to like two victims, and then got caught
yeah,
because he was stupid.
he was a stupid.
But supposedly his house is haunted, and then also the Biltmore Estate, which used to be owned by a member of the Italian mafia. Um,
Ah,
they would actually bring people in there to torture them, and they would also one of their main guards, Fatty, was murdered in his sleep, and nobody still knows who it was.
wow.
And but you can there's like I think a testimonial from his family about it and who they think it was, because apparently he had a problem with one of the other guys within the mafia, and they were just talking about that whole drama thing.
Yeah,
And it's just kind of interesting to get their perspective rather than the Biltmore family who was in the middle of the
yeah,
whole thing and
yeah.
talks about it.
That's interesting too. By the way, chat, if you guys have something that you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to shoot it to me in like a DM or on Discord or on Twitter. My main Twitter is in the description as well. Um, but I would love to have a little backlog of stuff that I could just boom, 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 knock it out. Because there's plenty of material out there. There's plenty of stuff to cover that's really just screwed up, or it just makes you tilt your head, and go what? So yeah,
Oh,
please feel free to shoot me ideas and shit, and I'll happily, take care of that.
just make it anything scary.
Yeah, anything scary or anything. Well, because I have the two series for different reasons. I have the Halls of Horror to do the more mainstream stuff, bunch of other topics like the creepypastas and alternate gaming realities, the theories like the one we did not too long ago. And then Tales of Terror is more for the stuff that a lot of people haven't had heard about. And I'm usually stick to serial killers on that one. Or murder cases, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to pick that stuff up and run with it, though. I'm pretty flexible.
Because there's plenty of weird stuff.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of his weird stuff and a lot of his, like, really fucking out there cases that I've found through just looking for stuff for the Tales of Terror. I think I'm gonna start wrapping it up since nobody else has hopped in the voice chat, and I've
All right.
covered everything that I wanted to cover. So
All right.
thank you for coming on, QAR. And
You're very welcome.
I will talk to you later.
Yes.
Alrighty, guys. And that is my Frankenstein version of what the perfect serial kill would look like. Yes, it's very detailed, and it's creepy the level of detail that I'll go in on this. But it's a lot of fun to think about, and it's interesting trying to put yourself in that mindset and kind of test your knowledge of this stuff. Thank you to the donators from tonight, Turtle and Thatch. Thank you so much for donating tonight. I'm very appreciative of it. And for those who've subscribed, Bam VFX and Anime Horror Doll, I appreciate it very greatly. Alright. But thank you for coming by, and thank you for having a listen to my little ramblings. And no, there won't, Elshi, but that's another conversation for another day. I'm gonna close the stream out and have a wonderful night and sweet nightmares.